Thanks for joining us once again on the JewishNewsChannel.com. In case you don't have an hour to kill, we're going to bring you a condensed version of President Trump's address to Congress. And it was phenomenal. It was brilliant. And what's the proof? The proof is that even his harshest opponents concede that this was an absolutely phenomenal speech. What was so brilliant about it was that instead of being divisive, which President Trump has been known to be, he was the exact opposite. He made arguments that nobody could possibly disagree with, and they supported his cause and they supported his policies, but they were just incredibly simple. And as I said, nobody could argue with a lot of the points that he made, as we're going to see shortly. He opened in an ingenious way. He opened by talking about Black History Month, last day of Black History Month. Now, here's the guy who has been called a racist. He's practically been accused of being a KKK member, and yet he opens with Black History Month. How ingenious is that? And then right away he segues that into the anti-Semitism that's been going on, tragic, horrible things that have been happening, the vandalism in cemeteries and the false threats against all these JCCs everywhere. Now, where did that come from? That came from Ivanka. No coincidence that Ivanka just a week ago said that she's going to be doing something about all the anti-Semitism that's been happening here in this country. Ivanka did help him prepare his speech. That's been reported. And boom, right out of the box, he mentions anti-Semitism. What other president can you imagine doing that? And then he spun it into not a negative message, but a positive unifying message, the racism and the anti-Semitism, saying that this country is united in condemning hate and evil. And that then became a running theme throughout the evening. So again, keeping it very positive. Then President Trump talked about a new chapter of American greatness and pride, said that we're only 9 years away from the 250th centennial of this country, and then said, what will our country look like in 9 years? How incredible can it be 250 years after its founding if we do the right thing? And then Trump really got into details. Middle class has shrunk, and we've made other countries rich while we're getting more poor. We finance global projects while our kids are ignored. We defend others' borders and leave our borders wide open. Again, this stuff, you can't disagree with it if you try. I mean, it's just so obvious. And he says we spend trillions rebuilding other countries while our infrastructure is crumbling. We'll get into infrastructure later. I don't agree with everything that he said about infrastructure. Then Trump got a little poetic, and I thought it was really well written. The speech, if you have a chance, was absolutely amazing. He says the quiet voices turned into a loud chorus, which eventually became an earthquake of people and of voices demanding that we make America great again. And then he said that we're going to give the military the resources it needs, rebuild the infrastructure, stop the drug epidemic, and repair the inner cities. And only after all of that did he even get into boosting himself and boasting about his own achievements in the past month. He said that a bunch of companies, as we know, have announced that they're going to invest billions of dollars in the United States and create tens of thousands of jobs. Stock market since Election Day has gained a historic $3 trillion. And Trump has saved hundreds of millions of dollars for our tax dollars by bringing down the price of these fancy jet fighters, and is negotiating billions more dollars in savings on government contracts, which of course is something that he's promised to do for a very long time. And this is very big. President Trump said that he placed a freeze on hiring federal workers. So any non-essential federal workers, I don't know what that means, but it's a start. And he said that he mentioned a 5-year ban on lobbying by executive officials, which means anybody that he hires cannot lobby for 5 years after leaving office, and a lifetime ban on lobbying for foreign governments, which is pretty amazing. And then he made lobbyists, again, running theme of Trump, lobbyists are destroying this country. He also mentioned a new rule that for every one new, and this is huge, every one new regulation that is created, they must abolish 2 existing regulations. That's going to boost the economy in so many ways. Can't get into it now, but regulations are crushing businesses, crushing banks' abilities to lend. I mean, the regulations have absolutely destroyed the economy, and Trump is saying, no, you can't create any regulations until you get rid of them first, and get rid of twice as many as you create. And he finally, of course, cleared the way for the Keystone and Dakota pipelines, which is going to create tens of thousands of jobs, ridiculous environmental lobbyists that didn't allow Obama. Obama, of course, didn't want to do it anyway because he himself is an environmentalist nut job. And we finally have paved the way. And also we've gotten out of TPP, which Trump said that he was going to do, of course, and has also been very destructive to our countries here in the United States. Then he discussed an aggressive strategy to fight crime, dismantle criminal cartels and reduce violent crime. He says he's going to stop drugs from pouring into this country and expand treatment to help people who are addicted, which is a big, big issue right now. It's been for years. Now, am I skeptical about all these promises about fighting crime and getting rid of the drugs. Have we heard it before for like 40 years and longer? Yes, I'm skeptical, but it's a start. And then he got into immigration, of course, his biggest issue. He says we're finally going to enforce the laws, and he made the point it's not creating the laws, we're enforcing the laws. And this is the part that I don't see how anybody can disagree with, one of the many parts, because these laws exist. And we'll get into this a little bit later when I make some observations. But he says not only will we save billions of dollars, we'll increase safety for this country by getting rid of illegal aliens and strengthening our border. And, of course, building a wall, removing gang members and criminals who are here illegally, which he's already begun to do. And he had this great line, quote, "Bad ones are going out as I speak tonight and as I have promised." And then he said to Congress, he looked them in the face and he said, what would you say to families who have lost jobs, who have lost a loved one, who have lost income as a result of illegal immigration because America refused to defend its borders and enforce laws that are already on the books? What would you say to them? Again, it's a message which totally supports his point, and I don't see how anybody can dispute or debate what he's saying. And he says that we're taking, and then historically he says we're taking strong measures to protect the nation from, quote, radical Islamic terrorism. And this was historic because this is the first time that a president addressing Congress has used the term radical Islam. Okay, that means Obama didn't do it, Clinton didn't do it, and yes, boys and girls, President Bush never used that term when addressing Congress. So President Trump finally is bold enough to do what nobody else has done. And then he said that according to the Department of Justice, the vast majority of individuals convicted for terrorism-related offenses since 9/11 came here from outside of our country. So there you have it. The data supports everything that he's been saying about immigration, which is that the terrorism comes from the outside, from people who come here to this country from elsewhere. Shocker? Certainly not. And then he said, one of my opinions, the best line of the night, quote, "It is not compassionate, but reckless to allow uncontrolled entry from places where proper vetting cannot occur. Those given the high honor of admission to the United States should support this country and love its people and its values." Again, turning it around to the Democrats' face, saying, you think you're being so compassionate by letting people in here illegally. It's the opposite of compassion. It's reckless. When you just don't have rules, when you just let things fly and you just let anybody come in, that's mayhem. That's destructive. So he turned it in their face. You think you're being nice and compassionate. In reality, you're the bad guys. And here we're trying to have a rule of law, and we're actually trying to help people the right way by bringing in people who actually support this country. And he said he's going to rebuild the immigration system in an unprecedented way, finally make it merit-based. He said we're not just going to let people come in because they decide to escape their country and come in illegally, but the exact opposite. It's going to be merit-based. It's a much more fair system. Again, I don't know how anybody could argue. Here, these people are honoring the law, saying, you know, we're not going to go into the United States illegally, and they have to suffer because the people who go in illegally are the ones who actually get to stay. Well, it makes no sense. The ones who came in here illegally, they're the first ones that we should be kicking out. So another great point by Trump. And then the president discussed infrastructure, which we'll talk about, and called on Congress to repeal, and then he called on Congress to repeal and replace Obamacare. He says, let's lower the cost of insurance instead of mandating everybody has it. And he bashed the guy who said, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, which is a broken promise, and President Trump called him on it. Then he got into more details about healthcare, saying it'll be cheaper, more competitive, and he discussed something interesting, which we'll get into, child care and paid family leave. And this is not a conservative value at all, in my opinion. He said we're going to have people, mothers allowed, and fathers, I guess, but mothers mainly, to do child care, meaning we're going to force the workplaces to let mothers help mothers take care of their child and have paid family leave. Not a conservative value. I think that's going to hamper businesses and only restrict them. How did that come about? That was also Ivanka. It's reported that Ivanka had a strong hand. This is a big cause of hers, and I don't agree with her on this, but he did throw that in. Then amazingly, he mentioned that it was something called Rare Disease Day, which I've never heard of. Again, give credit to his brilliant staff and strategists, and he introduced an amazing 20-year-old woman who was a rare disease survivor. So again, to weave that into the speech is just brilliant, and it shows, you know, the kind of issues that he cares about that I think a lot of people would be surprised by. People were shocked. A lot of people who only hear about the evil, racist Donald Trump were absolutely shocked by the positive, compassionate man they saw last night. Then he got into education reform, saying that African Americans and Latinos and other minorities should get to choose their school. And what he proposed sounds an awful lot like a voucher system. So that could be the actual biggest moment of the evening for the frum world. President Trump saying that he supports something that sounds eerily like vouchers. Let's hope. He discussed the crime and murder rates in inner cities and said how we all have to support police and law enforcement officials, which he did bring them back to immigration. And he gave examples of several police officers who were gunned down by illegal immigrants. And then from there, he segued into the military and said that we need to give our brave warriors the resources they need and they deserve to defend our country. He said he's going to force NATO members to live up to their responsibilities, their obligations to us and to third world countries, which is something he's also mentioned in the past. And then that was the crux, the substance, the content of the speech. And then he went on for a couple of minutes about more inspirational stuff, pretty poetic, encouraging people to believe in themselves, believe in our country and our future. And as I said, check it out because it was an amazingly well-written speech. It was nice and tight and crisp and to the point and full of a lot of really, really great wording. I mean, they just went all out, as I guess you'd expect them to. It's one of the great speeches that you'll ever see. Now, a couple of observations that I want to make. Number one, right out of the gate, he mentioned the anti-Semitism and the terrible desecration, vandalism that's been going on, the JCCs. I mean, it's really, really ugly and something has to be done. Again, it came from Ivanka, and if this doesn't prove, what other president would do this? You know, people, all of you out there who are concerned, maybe he's an anti-Semite, maybe he's not pro-Jewish. I mean, Ivanka and Jared, I don't see how you can debate the fact that they are a huge asset for Jews. I mean, we are number one on Donald Trump's list and his mind. And 30 seconds, within the first 30 seconds, now he didn't get into it in great detail and how we're going to fight the anti-Semitism. He couldn't, in my opinion. It didn't belong. This was an overview, this speech. This speech was not about getting into the nitty-gritty. But the first 30 seconds, a president gets before Congress. And with all the stuff going on, he mentions the anti-Semitism. That is massive. I mean, you cannot understate how big a deal that is. This could very well be, you never know, could very well be the greatest president that the Jews in the frum world have ever had. And on immigration, I can't get over how far things have swung to the left. We could go on for hours. I'm not going to. But when it comes to immigration, the Democrats literally, they're debating what's considered a crime, what type of thing should you toss an illegal alien out of this country for. When did we have to look for a crime? The crime was that they came across the borders illegally to begin with. Drunk driving, maybe it's a crime, maybe it's not. Driving without a license. Are you kidding me? They came across. We don't need an excuse. Last time I checked, we have every right to go to these people and kick them out of our country just by virtue of the fact that they're not allowed to be here to begin with and they're not citizens and they have no right to be here. And they jumped the border illegally. So we've gotten so far to the left. And again, if they were benefiting our country, fine. But the fact that there are so many of them that are taking away our job, committing crimes, bringing down our communities and our country, hurting people, killing people, you don't need an excuse. But then things have swayed so far to the left that it's like we have to go and like explain ourselves when we actually want to do this egregious act of kicking people who don't belong here out and bringing in people based on merit and based on their support of this country. So again, President Trump nailed it. And it's such a basic argument that once you hear it, it's like, how can you defend the other side? And they can't. Infrastructure, as I mentioned, not conservative. I really don't believe we should spend trillions of dollars in infrastructure right now when we're like $20 trillion in debt. And as President Trump also mentioned, poverty levels are at an extreme right now. He did get into a little bit into food stamps and Medicaid and entitlements, but we'll get into that in a second. But the point is, as far as infrastructure goes, he did make the point that we're spending billions and trillions to help the Iraqi infrastructure and other countries, and yet ours is crumbling. Good point. I agree. I say let's not spend anything on infrastructure in Iraq, in any country, in the United States either for that matter. And let's first start to grow the GDP, grow the economy. Let's get out of the debt that we're in, $20 trillion of debt, pay China back, and then we can start building the infrastructure. I don't agree about that. And he talked about deregulating and lightening up the regulations and restrictions on companies. And we know that he's anti all the crazy environmental regulations and everything else. Look, he wants to repeal Obamacare. He certainly wants to cut spending. So there are many, many conservative areas where I think we can align ourselves with President Trump. Is he perfect? No. Is he way better than so many of the other options? And I mean, infinitely better, light years better, stratospheres better than what we could have had with Hillary Clinton. No question about that. All right. So thanks for being here once again with us here on the JewishNewsChannel.com and on Matzav. And we'll see you next time.